Hello everyone and welcome to the next video in my N journey, where I'm here back at Courtenay Sport after having all of the Forged Motorsport hardware fitted, and we're going to see how the car's faring up now and all the improvements made with the hardware fitted. So the only difference is that we have made since the last time I was here is we did remove the downpipe. For my own personal taste, it was just a little bit too loud, and we did fit the Motorsport high pressure fuel pump. So with that being said, we've got the intercooler on, the intake and the turbo elbow, just to name a few. So let's get the car on the dyno and see what power we're making now. So I'm joined here with John from Courtenay. Thank you for having me back again, John, and fitting me in your very busy schedule.
No problem at all.
So we've had the car back in on the dyno after all the hardware's been fitted, and we have got our results.
Yeah, it's a reasonable increase, and that's largely come about due to the efficiency of the components that are now on there, the larger boost pipes, the combination of the boost pipes with the intercooler, so the car is cooling more efficiently. And certainly up at the top end of the graph here, you can see where you would have got some heat soak as the car revved and accelerated and it was on power for this duration, then the intercooler would have started to heat soak. The standard one, that is, and now with the uprated forged cooler it doesn't, so the power is naturally will come up because the air temperature is cooler. Awesome. And therefore the charge is denser. So that's helped, and obviously it's got the air filter as well, so that's freed off the intake along with the new elbow, which has been remachined to suit the Generation 2 turbo. So
and we're seeing more gains with the new Gen Turbo with the air intake over the Gen 1.
Gen 1, yeah. Gen 1, we always struggled with intakes to see anything really quantifiable. I mean, the difference we were seeing was almost the difference between two runs, whereas on the Gen 2 car, that turbo is clearly pulling a lot more air and getting to the point where the standard airbox is running out of scope. So the intake now really makes sense on the Gen 2 car, certainly more than it did on the Gen 1.
Yeah. So in between the videos that I've shot here, we did return, didn't we? Because I did remove the downpipe just because of my own personal kind of taste that it was just a little bit too loud. So on our last video we hit, I think it was 363 on the brake horsepower, but I did revisit, didn't I? Got that removed and we fitted the high pressure Motorsport fuel pump. Yeah,
and obviously putting the catalyst back in, put a little bit more restriction on the exhaust, hence the loss and the power down to 358. But the high pressure fuel pump was almost sort of paving the way for the future, really, because we knew this lot was coming. Yeah. So at least because the danger is all of a sudden you get that efficiency in, and if the fuel pump can't keep pace with the power, and certainly because there's a demand that the fuel pump wants to see, and if the fuel pump can't match it and it drops too far below, the car starts to misfire. Yeah. And you get that sort of misfire in the mid-range through here, where because the pump is driven off the engine, you haven't got the engine speed to justify the fuel that's there. And that's why you'll see on direct injection cars, you start to get that puffing from the exhaust as the fuel pump can't keep up. At the top end, it's never a problem, or it's not such a problem because of the engine speed is greater, the pump can deliver more fuel. There is a limitation, obviously, you can't just keep going and going. But so the fuel pump was good.
But we did obviously lose quite a bit of power when we did remove the downpipe. And so for those who are wanting to reach the milestone of 400, we're at 381. And for those who are wanting to knock on the door or surpass the 400, you'd recommend a bit like I had a sport cat?
Yeah, it's probably a sports cat in the front pipe, and also a full exhaust, because your car is still running 2 3/4 inch exhaust. So that's now the next bottleneck in the system to achieving sort of 400. And we have done one since your car has been here, which was a fastback, and that did to 40, 405, 406. But that had a full exhaust, complete decats. So the exhaust was very free, and quite loud as well, to be fair. Certainly maybe not the exhaust if you've got neighbours and you're leaving the house at 4 o'clock in the morning or returning at that sort of time.
Which is unfortunately my predicament.
But it did net the power, obviously.
Yeah, awesome. So car is running absolutely beautifully, and it's 380 is still nothing to be shy about, really, at all.
No, not at all, considering the car is largely on a full exhaust, and 380 through 2 3/4 exhaust is a pretty good result, really.
Yeah.
And where most cars at that sort of power are generally 3-inch.
Yeah.
You know, from 300 horsepower upwards, generally 3-inch.
And on the track day that I done, it was plenty enough power to get round. But brilliant. Awesome. So thank you very much for having me down, John.
No problem at all.
And I'll see you next time.
We'll see you next time.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers.
So, at 381 brake horsepower and 371 foot-pounds torque, I said it before, but this car is now mega fast. But my favourite part about it is that the car hasn't lost any of its character. Now, what I mean by that is that the power doesn't exceed the limitations of the chassis itself, which might have something to do with the white line parts that I fitted. It makes it a much more capable car. And to be honest, it could probably have a little bit more power, which kind of brings me to John's point of the exhaust now being the bottleneck. Did I remove the sport cap prematurely? I think I might have. See, I'm never one really for chasing numbers. I'm all about the drivability of the car, but after hearing John had already mapped a car to surpass 400 brake and had a very similar curve to mine, I'm thinking maybe I should have just left that sport cat on, and as Dan at RPM Performance suggested, fit a GPF back 3-inch with a large resonator in to quiet it down, because that was my issue. The sports cat gave a lot of power. I actually lost about 12 to 15 brake horsepower from memory when I removed the sport cat, and quite a lot more torque. So if that was on the car, on its own it would be pushing 400 brake, which is just such a lovely milestone to hit. So if you throw in a GPF 3-inch as well, as John said, that being the bottleneck, it could just be 400 plus. So something to consider for sure. But something that I haven't yet mentioned is that the map that we are running is still the map from my previous video. So the 23 brake horsepower jump was in fact just the Forge hardware being fitted. So it goes to show just how versatile the Courtenay Sport software is, and it shows how efficient the Forge Motorsport hardware is on the car. Now, a lot of people have been messaging me and asking me what are the main components to give the power. Now, in my opinion, on the Forge side, it will be the intercooler, which will come with the enlarged boost pipes on the facelift, on the DCT model at least, the intake and the turbo elbow. But when you look into how much power you're running, you're going to need to maintain the engine further because the tolerances are much, slimmer. So the oil cooler will help the maintenance of your car and the health of your car a lot better if you didn't have it. So if you are going to go for the big power, I would definitely recommend the oil cooler as well. Now, something that I have noticed which has improved the most is the pickup in the car, or the throttle response, and the way it just revs out. The pickup is just absolutely insane. For instance, it just picks up and just goes, which is vastly improved over a stock car or even a stage 1 car. Now, after talking with Paul from Forge, I was just trying to identify if there's possibly something that's contributing to that more than others. But the feedback is that it is a combination of the intercooler with the large boost pipes, the air intake and the turbo elbow. Now, if you had a bit of an eagle eye earlier, on the trace on the map, you can see in the very low RPMs that it's actually slightly lower in power and in torque, but that is to do with the amount of volume of the intercooler and the boost pipes, which the boost of the turbo is now filling with air. But you don't feel that in the car at all, and in fact, like I say, it almost feels like it's vastly improved, but it is very, very marginal, the loss on the screen anyway, so it's nothing but improvement by adding these. That was close. So I have actually been fortunate enough recently to win a competition on Racebox's Instagram page, where I actually won their brand new Racebox Mini, which is very similar to a Dragy system, where it uses GPS signal to measure things such as your 0 to 60 time or your 100 to 200 kilometre per hour measurement, which is quite popular in Europe to show the capabilities real world of your car, obviously not to be taken part on a public road. So I think in the next video I will get that out, have a bit of a play and get some real world measurements of the car. So I think that about wraps up for this video. So if you've liked what you've seen, please remember to give the video a like, and if you don't want to miss what's coming up next, maybe some exhaust modifications by the sounds of it, please remember to subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.